what's up? It's Julia.
Madison, Sia here, and we are analyzing the Yellow Wallpaper as written by Charlotte Perkins Stetson.
Yeah, woo!
And the meaning that the story conveys is that the mistreatment of women and the lack of the medical research during the 1800s of that time.
We are going to do a deep dive on this.
And I think we can all agree that we will be analyzing symbolism and irony, both dramatic and situational.
And situational,
yep.
For sure.
So starting off with symbolism,
right?
One of the biggest symbols in just this entire story is the wallpaper itself.
The color, yeah.
Yeah, the color, the design on the wallpaper, just everything about it. Something that specifically
stands out in a way.
Yeah, something that specifically stands out to me is the color and the way that the author, the narrator, words it as she's talking about it. So on page 3 or
6,
technically also 649 in the entire story, but in our PDF version, page 3, the narrator says, "The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight." Something I find particularly interesting about this is that she doesn't just say yellow, she says unclean yellow. So I'm going to assume that this is more of a darker, dirtier yellow. Yellow as a color symbolizes sunlight, happiness, brightness, right? But when it comes to a more dirty yellow, as said in the story, that more can represent sickness, illness, a loss of self-worth.
More like dullness in the wallpaper and like the mood.
Oh yeah, it so contributes to the mood. Like it just completely, it transforms it because we're going from a nice delicate yellow, but it's becoming into like a sickly sulfur tint in a way, and it's just not it at all. Like it, you can see how it's taking to her and how she wants to tear it down, and she doesn't want to see it anymore. She's trying to take that off because she thinks it's an eyesore.
Affects her like mentally because the color and all makes her feel like just more sick.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't help her at all.
And I think that really ties back to the meaning of the story in that it's showing her actual illness, her
hysteria.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It definitely peeks out through the symbolism, through the irony, through the situational irony and dramatic irony. Like it is very, very prominent within this story, and just seeing this unfold and knowing that her hysteria gets worse as the story goes on definitely shows that like how much control and power was held over her, and it did not benefit her whatsoever.
So also on page 654, it talks about how the front pattern of the wallpaper moves and how she says like the woman behind shakes it, which I think that the woman believes there's someone trapped, and she relates it to her own situation because she's also trapped in a nursery, which kind of makes her condition more worse. And
she's also living that trapped life. Like she feels like the woman behind that wallpaper also wants to be out and wants to be into that world just how she wants, and she relates to that figure and believes that she should be able to live that freedom as she should too, as she wants to tear down that wallpaper and be free.
Yeah, the woman in the wallpaper really kind of represents the wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Like their desire for freedom and their want to escape the trap that they're
the treatment plan that was put over them.
And I think that once again ties back to the color of the wallpaper. The woman in the wallpaper is trapped inside this sickly yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pretty yellow at all.
No, and the narrator's gonna make sure you know that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the words are like presented that. Like, oh, it's sickly and it's hideous to her.
That was like the main point.
It was the main point. It was. She absolutely hates this wallpaper. And it's crazy how like her hysteria got to that point where she was seeing a face behind that wall, and we know that there's not an actual face there, but that is
all her mind games.
Yes, her mind games. That hysteria is representing her.
And I think that's starting to delve into irony, right?
Yes.
You said that we know something she doesn't. That's our example
of
dramatic irony, right? We know that the wife as a character is getting worse.
Yeah.
She doesn't. No one does.
Yeah.
We know that she has some sort of hysteria.
It's very prominent. It's sad how much power that the men had on women over that time.
Yeah.
And it's great that it's gotten better.
Yeah.
That's actually good. It also ties into situational irony because the husband thinks that the treatment of her staying in that room helps her, but actually it makes her condition worse.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's why she does not get well faster, because she's just trapped in a place where she can't do nothing, and she's just reminded of that wallpaper, which brings back to her the stuff that she sees of like another woman being trapped as her.
I definitely feel like she's gonna start seeing things because she's literally in a room.
She's gonna have hallucinations.
She can't leave. Yeah, hallucinating,
Mm-hmm.
talking to herself, like thinking this wallpaper is actually like trying to show her things. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, it gets that bad to the point where it's like, oh, this wallpaper is talking to me. It's like telling me that it is also a woman stuck behind this, and oh my gosh, we share that similarity trait of wanting to be out and be free.
The source that relates to that, which was on page 647, was where it said that John is a physician, and perhaps that is one reason that she does not get well faster, because he's the one who suggested the treatment of putting her in the nursery room, which actually made her worse, the condition of her mental health worse.
And it's very situationally ironic, because although he's a physician, he's a doctor, no one's getting better.
No.
He's not doing anything. We as readers know that putting someone in isolation like that doesn't help people.
It does not.
We use it exactly. We use it as a form of imprisonment.
Yeah,
these
exactly.
days.
Yeah. Go be in a room by yourself. Isolation. It should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not used to cure people. So it's interesting that the physician would use a modern form of imprisonment to heal his wife. It's not doing anything.
It's not helping her.
Which also suggests that he didn't have any medical research or anything, or he didn't like delve into the fact that would this actually work? What would be the consequences of this?
And I think part of that is just at the time, as we spoke before in the meaning that there was a lack of medical research on women, I think part of that is there was an avoidance. There was an avoidance of wanting to research women's healthcare because men had all the answers. If men had all the answers, like the physician here has, he's a male, he's a doctor, he thinks that this is the right treatment for his wife. He both didn't research. It's very possible that at the time this was the best treatment that you could ever offer, right? But you still have to wonder if, because there was a sort of avoidance, because men had all the answers, they were the ones who knew everything.
They were the ones who could go to school for that.
Exactly.
They had all of those answers because they were able to go to schooling. Women weren't at that time.
Yeah, and that in the power, like they had the power to do anything.
And that would also have related to women's bodies.
Yeah.
They didn't need to research women's bodies because they already had all the answers, which just further feeds into his wife's growing hysteria.
Yes.
Which we can see
for sure
grows nearing the end of the story on page 655. She's talking about the woman. She says, if that woman does get out and tries to get away, I can tie her. She's talking about that she has a rope, that she can tie this hallucination of a woman that she sees. That's obviously some form of hysteria, some form of hallucinations, which is not healthy.
No. she's seeing things. She's seeing
For
things.
real.
I feel bad for her, honestly. She can't do anything. Like, even if she tries to break out, she's just gonna be back in that room. Even though, like, towards the end of the story, she ends up, like, doesn't she, like, knock him out? Because it's, like, portrayed that he's on the floor in the picture.
Right.
She's leaning over him while he's looking to be unconscious. But she was trying to be free.
Also on page 655, it also says that she's getting angry enough to do something desperate, which is she can, like, be violent.
Yes, that's...
Which can cause, like, harm to the husband.
Yeah.
Due to his imprisonment. Due to him imprisoning her in that nursery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All that pent-up rage.
Yeah, it just will
gonna
come
release,
out.
Yep.
Yeah. And then she can also harm herself through the violence, which can lead to no good.
Mm-hmm. So throughout the story, we see her hysteria progressively getting worse. We first notice these hallucinations that she sees, and then we get to this lack of emotional control turns into violence and anger, and that, again, it all ties back to her imprisonment, really.
Her desperation to find freedom and get out of that room.
She doesn't deserve to be there. There's, like, even in modern day, there's so much more, like, science and research that we can, like, lead to that. And, like, they're not, like, if a woman had anxiety back then, it meant, like, something was wrong with her. Like, nowadays, it's like, oh, like, we can have, like, actual help for that and, like, therapy and so many resources. But back then, it was just labeled as, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. Like, you need to be isolated and have higher power, which is the men, just, like, take control and be, like, your sort of, like, oh, I know exactly what's wrong with you. Like, I went to school. I'm the professional here. Like, don't question me. Like, she wasn't really allowed to question him. Like, she was just told to just, like, listen. Like,
and I think
I understand. Like, I guess he knows what's best.
I think that's stated somewhere in the story.
Yeah.
Let me find it real quick.
I think that's... outfit is low-key giving girl boss, like, in the her hair, and her, like, dress with the bun, and, like, it's giving empowerment, and it just shows how, like, we've evolved over time with that, and, like, standing our ground and creating a voice for us, and knowing that there is resources, and having anxiety doesn't make you crazy, doesn't make you hysterical, and reading this story definitely shines a light, and it was very interesting. It was very, very, very deep, and I was clinging on to every word as I was reading the story, and I love it, and the author did a great job, and I think this is very meaningful, made a ripple, very easy to understand.
Yeah. So on page 651,
there it is.
The wife actually is talking about her husband in this instance. She says, "Dear John, he loves me very dearly and hates to have me sick." That sentence there, she obviously agreeing with how he is the one who has all the answers. And I think that's just once again tying back into dramatic irony, because it's that we know she's being put into this form of a cage in that room. We know she's not getting better, but he's the doctor, he's the man. She's going to trust him.
Exactly.
She asks all the questions to him because she knows that he's the one who's going to give the answers and permission to what to do. So that's why she keeps on asking him, even though she knows that's not going to help her.
He knows best in this situation.
So through all of this, the symbolism, the dramatic and situational irony found all throughout the story, really
it was very vibrant within the story, and it kind of tied the story together in a way. Like, it made the story the Yellow Wallpaper.
Mm-hmm.
It's all throughout the story. It's peppered through. You can see it. Symbolism is very heavy. Irony, situational irony, dramatic irony.
Those elements were like used to show how that the men were in power back days, and how the woman would rely on the men to what to do and what they should do, and how there was like no medical research that time, and how the women were mistreated and just like were controlled by the men.
24/7. They knew it was to be. They were the professionals. They were the head of the household.
It was a patriarchy.
It was, seriously, 100%.
Well, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for tuning in
and listening to our
little podcast, a little chit chat about this subject, and thank you for wanting to. I just said tuning in. Thank you for.
It's okay. We can edit that out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening, and
once again, I'm Madison.
I'm Julia.
And I'm Sia.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Bye.